Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have a cozy group here. My name is Art DiBenedetto. I'm very honored to be the superintendent of schools, and I'd like to talk to you about something that's quite important, which has to do with the September 26th referendum. As you know, there are 4 schools in the district. Tulsa Trail was dedicated in 1969, Durban in 71, the high school in 69, and the middle school in 1980. Those buildings have been taken care of as well as possible, and I'll explain why some of the things we're trying to do in a referendum could not be done through the regular budget as we move on. But what is a referendum? Referendum comes from the Latin word referere, which means a proposal for approval. Interestingly, the word referee comes from the same stem. A referee, of course, makes a judgment approving a certain play or an activity. The referendum that we have is very simple. On September 26th, we're asking people to vote yes or no on questions that have to do with the ability of the schools to make repairs that are necessary due to wear and tear on the buildings that, as I mentioned, are not exactly new. There are 2 questions on the referendum. The first one is the main one, and I'll go over in detail each and every project on the first question. And there is a second question, which is a much smaller one, and I'll explain why there are 2 questions in a few minutes. Bottom line is this: the superintendent is not asking people to vote yes. The superintendent is asking people to arm themselves with information to make an educated decision on whether or not the projects outlined in the referendum are something that needs to be done. I've offered tours of why we need what we're asking for. I offered that to the mayor and Councilman Schindler, who have been very attentive to the projects and have asked excellent questions, and I am appreciative of that. Anybody who wants to see what we're doing is welcome to do so. Simply give me an email. My address is on the handouts that are on the table over there. So the referendum's 2 questions. If the first question is voted yes, and the second question is voted yes, the full project runs. If the first question is voted yes, and the second question is voted no, the first question items run. If the first question is voted no, and the second question is voted yes, the entire project cannot be done. No aspect of it can be accomplished. And obviously, if both questions are no's, the projects cannot be completed. The last referendum in Apacong was in 2003. It was turned down by the voters quite heavily. What followed after that was a significant period of consecutive budget defeats. In those days, people voted yearly on each and every school budget. Every budget from 2003 on, until they stopped the elections, was turned down. Not only were the budgets fail, on some years the town council chose to take more money out of the budgets. The results were significant layoffs, and there was no attempt, there could be no attempt, to make some corrections which would have made this a more pliable circumstance. It just was impossible. Staff members were cut. There was discussion on having an outside contractor come in for our custodial staff. They were very, very tough times. Shortly after people stopped voting on the budget, the district was engaged in enrollment drop. During an enrollment drop, you can't raise taxes. It's not fair to the taxpayers. The enrollment drop encumbered almost 40% of the student body. again, it was impossible to incorporate things into the budget that would have assisted us in terms of maintenance. Even as enrollment drops got less, and actually this year was the first year we had an enrollment increase, even as they got less, then the state aid cuts came into effect. When the state aid cuts started, the Hopatcong School District was getting $12 million in state aid. That is down to 4, and more cuts are still coming. Again, we're not in a situation where we could put a new roof on the high school given the fact of the state aid cuts. When I got to this district, there were 14 administrators. There are 7 now. When I got to the district, there were a significant number of teachers who are no longer here, not because they retired or got new jobs, but because they were riffed or reduced because of the budget circumstance. The referendum totals a big number, $26 million. I'm rounding all my numbers off tonight. It's actually, so if I round 26, it's actually $27 million. And people, when they hear that number, tend to panic. How the heck are we going to pay for that over a 20-year period? Well, the beauty of it is, and it's interesting because with a referendum success story, the state picks up between 32 and 40% of that cost. So when I go through the projects for you, I'm going to say what the project cost, and I'm going to tell you how much the state aid will get on each and every project. That is debt service aid. Debt service is dedicated to the improvement of buildings. Some districts have them for new construction. Ours has no new construction in it. It is repair and maintenance. Important to remember, and if people talk about this, again, and I've had people on the council say publicly that $26 million is an impossible amount, and I would agree with that. But it's not $26 million. It's between 32 and 40% of that will be paid for by the state, not the taxpayers. What is the tax impact on the referendum if it's successful with the state aid? The average home in Hopatcong is appraised at $216,000. The tax impact on a home of that cost is $200 a year, depending upon where the state aid comes out. When I say between 32 and 40%, the state has a law which says they should do 40%. But it never comes out to totally 40%. I would be very happy if the referendum passed and we got 35%. That would be excellent. But the tax impact for an average home in Hopatcong is $200 a year. Now, if you have a home cost that's assessed at $1 million, obviously it's higher than that, 5 times higher than that. But we always use the math is simple. If your home is assessed at twice the value, then it's $400 a month. Interestingly, people say that's going to crush our senior citizens who are on a fixed income. However, the state of New Jersey has some excellent programs for tax relief. There's a program called the Affordable New Jersey Communities for Homeowners and Renters Program. Applicants who've lived in town for 10 years and have lived in a home for 3 years and have an income of less than $250,000 are eligible for $1,500 in tax relief from the state. Renters are eligible. Their income threshold is $150 a year, but they're also eligible for a tax rebate. Not $1,500, is less than that. So I've talked to the senior citizens about this program, and some believe you had to be invited to it, but that is not necessarily so. You can go online and you could look up this program, and You can apply for it on a yearly basis. It is a very nice program. There's also legislation for additional tax relief on the part of people. The state does not want people retiring and leaving. They want to maintain them. So the state is trying its best to keep them here. It's ironic that we get crushed with state aid on the regular budget, but we have a chance of 32 to 40% of state aid on this referendum project. Please allow me to go through the projects. This will take about 10 to 15 minutes. These are outlined in the handout. However, the costs were not part of it. This will all be on the website on Monday. This is an updated version. I had this same meeting 2 weeks ago. I've added in my presentation questions that came about 2 weeks ago, and I'll give them to you tonight. But let me go through the projects and what their cost is. At Durbin Avenue, there are two immediate projects. One is an underground heating oil tank replacement. The cost of that is approximately $497,000, with the state paying $199,000 of that amount. At Durbin also, the exterior window replacement needs to be put forth. The windows are original. You cannot get hardware for the windows as they exist. As a result, some of them have to be bolted shut. There's also, if you sit in the principal's office in February, her papers blow off the desk because of the poor window situation that she has. That's not a joke. That's the truth. At the middle ground, we also have an underground heating oil tank replacement. The cost of that is $754,000, with $300,000 in state aid. At the middle school, exterior doors and hardware replacement for security purposes, cost of $257,000, $103,000 state aid. Middle school interior gym door replacement, the original doors are there, $35,000, $14,000 in state aid. The biggest item is the high school roof repair replacement. The cost, the high school is a big building. The cost of this is $8 million. The state aid on this is $3.3 million. If you were to stay in certain parts of the high school during a rainstorm, and I did not put that bucket there on purpose, but that's one of the areas that leaks. But the gym especially has significant leaks that entail putting trash cans to catch the water. The roof on this building is shot. The auditorium roof was redone with local funds 2 years ago, but the rest of the building hasn't been updated. There have been a number of roof repair jobs over the years paid out of local funds. Some parts of the building have 3 or 4 layers of roof on it, all of which must be removed and replaced. In the auditorium, the rigging, lighting, and sound upgrades need to be undertaken for a cost of $750,000, with $300,000 in state aid. At the middle school, fire door and hardware replacement, $121,000, $48,000 in state aid. Durbin, the exterior window facade replacement, that is the area that surrounds the windows, which has chipped away, is $676,000, with $270,000 of state aid. At the middle school, unit ventilator replacement will cost $4 million, but it will air condition a good part of that building. It's hot in here. I am sweating, but classrooms are even hotter. And somebody made a point. People share with me what people are putting on Facebook and all that stuff. Somebody said, there's nothing in this for kids. Well, a referendum has to be based on structural stuff. But having an air-conditioned environment is something that youngsters can benefit and learn better from. And I'll argue that with anyone, including the person who said it. At the high school, there are 2 science labs that are original to the building. One has been upgraded through local funds, but the other 2 are in need of renovations. $960,000 cost, $384,000 state aid. High school stadium field, grading, drainage, sound, and scoreboard, $208,000, $83,000 in state aid. Hilltop, field restorations, grading and drainage, $182,000, $72,000 in state aid. High school, gymnasium floor, repaint and refinish, new scoreboards and sound, $334,000, $133,000 in state aid. District paving repairs, $2 million, $800,000 in state aid. Middle school window replacement, $1.1 million, $440,000 state aid. High school C-wing window replacement, again, original windows. Again, remember, the building was dedicated in 1969. C-wing window replacement, $500,000, $200,000 in state aid. Masonry repairs along the C-wing, $57,000, $22,000 state aid. Exterior window facade placement at the high school, $458,000, $183,000 in state aid. Middle school exterior basketball court playground fencing, $250,000, $100,000 state aid. High school auxiliary, gym replacement, $286,000 cost, $114,000 state aid. Question 2. Tulsa Trail roof repairs and replacement, $1.4 million, $580,000 state aid. High school stadium fieldhouse renovations, $390,000, $150,000 state aid. Tulsa Trail unit ventilator replacement. Again, the idea of putting both heat and air conditioning in. $2 million, $837,000 state aid. Also at Tulsa Trail, in order to do the unit ventilator replacement, an electrical system upgrade would have to be put forth for $367,000. $147,000 would be state aid. Almost every one of those projects have eligible costs as in the eyes of the State Department of Education, and that says a lot for the project. The stadium fieldhouse renovation is an item that would not receive state aid. That's the only item on the menu, so to speak. So again, the $26,787 $100 cost would be reduced between 32 and 40% via debt service aid. The district would still have to take out $26 million in bonds. They are municipal tax-free bonds, which are a good investment. And the district would pay off over a 20-year period, with the state aid coming each year prior to that payment. I had some excellent questions at my first presentation. I'm going to share them with you with the answers. One question that came up via email not 2 weeks ago: will there be a site manager hired to oversee construction and repair? Because there's no construction in the project and just about everything is a repair or replacement, there's no need for the hiring of a site manager for almost all the projects. A, there's no new construction, and B, the biggest part of the project has to do with roof repairs, and the roofing companies that we expect to bid on it have their own site manager who works directly with the school district as they accomplish this. So that is a cost that we don't have to encumber. It should also be noted that if the district sells the bonds, and the bonds sell, no district has trouble selling the bonds because of the interest rate, which is decent. The $27 million immediately gets invested in a bank, and the district accrues significant interest on its accounts. I'll give you an example. Even though we're not blessed with significant money right now, we're making $20,000 a month in interest from the investment in the bank, and that is important revenue. Again, I'm giving you a conservative figure on that. So what happens to the money that we get in interest on the $25 million that we put in a bank? And the answer is, it has to be used for similar type projects, but it can be used for these type of things. So there are some things that, if the referendum passes, are not part of the listing of projects, but would nevertheless be undertaken. Why is Tulsa Trail roof repair on a second question? Those of you who have your ear on the district know that prior to my return as superintendent, there was significant discussion on closing the Tulsa Trail School. Whereas enrollment went up for the first time in many years this year, the board was very open-eared to my discussion with them that closing the school is not in the best interest of the school district. Why is that? Closing Tulsa Trail would require, and I'm just jumping all over the place here, closing Tulsa Trail would require that the 7th grade be moved to the high school. The high school has room for another grade, but it does not have a environment conducive to isolating 7th graders from 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. I think I would have a difficult time selling that to the public. And this is my 4th referendum as superintendent. I've had so many similar situations in other districts, and I don't believe I would be very successful in telling parents of 7th graders that their kids are going to the high school next year. The district also has a significant special education population. We take pretty good care of our special ed students, but that requires a lot of classrooms. There's a limited number of small group instruction classes in the district. So a self-contained class for a special ed classification takes up a whole classroom. A resource center class, that means kids who are pulled out of, let's say, ELA or math, and they get instruction in smaller groups with a special ed teacher, they too have to use a full-size classroom. That factor makes it very difficult to say we can take grades 2 and 3 and easily fit them into the other 3 remaining buildings. As you know, the board ordered a feasibility study, not on the referendum, on the closing of Tulsa Trail. That's the 92-page report on the feasibility study to consider consolidation. 95% of that report is public information that was regurgitated. 5% of it says you could close the Tulsa Trail School. You would have difficulties, but you could do it. Before I left the district, last time I was superintendent, I gave the board an analysis. It was only 3 pages. It didn't cost them $35 an hour, which is what my pay was. I said they can close the Tulsa Trail School, but there'll be some difficulties. That's what the feasibility study says in 92 pages. Additionally, if the building is abandoned for 2nd and 3rd graders and the district wanted to sell it, it would still have to replace the roof for $1.4 million because you're not going to sell a building that's in need of a roof. That would present a significant difficulty. Additionally, if the board abandoned the building and didn't use it, even for 1 year, if it didn't use it as an educational center, and suddenly enrollment went up, the district would have to bring the Tulsa Trail School up to date on all construction codes. That would cost significant money. So abandoning that building doesn't sit right, and that's my opinion. There are people who disagree, and I respect that. But I will say this: keeping Tulsa Trail, if our enrollment goes up again this coming year, I believe that's going to begin a trend. If you go downtown and you look at the digital board on the town in the town offices, it says Apacong is one of the 10 best places in the state to move into because it has affordable housing. That's the town speaking. I am predicting that our enrollment increase of last year, which was minor but still went up, will continue to go up, and if that happens, Tulsa Trail's closing is really not an option. Finally, you may know that we have started a universal preschool program, and that means that every child from the age at the age of 3 and 4 in the town will have free preschool. Currently, there are 7 classes being run, or is it 9? 7. Sorry. Thank you, Catherine. Don't mean to put you on the spot, but I knew you would know the answer. 2 of those classrooms are at Durban. The other 5 are at locations of other preschool centers that we partner with. All of the preschool costs are paid for by the state. It's a separate state aid item. There would be advantages in the future even if enrollment did not continue to go up. If it started going down again, there would be advantages to using Tulsa Trail as a preschool center, which would be much easier on our populace who would only have to bring their kids to a local school and not to one in Jefferson or Lake Apacong or Stanhope. So I still didn't give you a good answer as to why Tulsa Trail is on a second question. Given the fact that there was some feelings that the school should be closed even before the feasibility study was released, it's a sort of compromise position, okay? If the Tulsa Trail School question passes along with question 1, the Tulsa Trail School remains in the district at least for 20 years as we pay off that debt. So putting it as a second question was essentially a compromise between those who wanted to close it and those who wanted to keep it open. I've tried to explain why the district did not take care of some of these issues through local yearly budgets. Again, after 2003, all the budgets voted on failed. Then there was the enrollment decrease. Then there were the state aid cuts. The district did do some significant work in that time. Right around the corner here is a brand new oil tank. The district spent, I'm not sure of the number off the top of my head, but the district spent over $500,000 taking the old tank out and replacing it through local money. It also replaced the auditorium roof with local money. And we're blessed to have a facilities director. We've had 2 excellent ones in a row. Greg over here is in his second year and is doing a bang-up job of making sure that whatever we can afford through the local budget, we do. I was asked, what is Plan B if the referendum fails? And I'm restricted on what I can say because I don't want to sound like I'm making a threat. But the reality is, and there are people in the audience who can answer this question more easily than I can because I have restrictions. A failed referendum would put the district in its current status quo situation. Given the fact that state aid cuts are not finished yet, many of the prior thoughts related to Tulsa Trail and Hapakong High School would have to be reconsidered. I can't delve into what those thoughts were, but I've already gone over some of them with Tulsa, and the high school was even a worst case scenario. Talk to you later if you're interested. As I said, all of this information will be put on the website on Monday. There are sketches of each of the project on the website. The handout includes the resolution, which is very legalese, but nevertheless does have an explanation part, which does a reasonable job of explaining what we're trying to do. What do I need from the public? I need the public to study. I need the public to do their homework, and I need the public to make a decision. In the 3 districts I had referenda in the past, prior to my getting the job, they had referendums that were crushed. All 3 of the ones I had in the other districts passed. And that was because I was able to get out information to people and allow them to make an intelligent decision. I have my worries in the Hapakong. First meeting was maybe 30 people. The second meeting, even less. A lot of the school employees. I have my worries. We will continue to get the word out. There'll be a mailing coming out in August which will explain everything. If you have questions, I'll answer them now, and I'll also add them to the website item. Any questions? Did I leave anything out that you feel was of vital importance? This is called wait time. It's a good item. Brian and Catherine know all about wait time. If there are not and something comes up, please feel free to email me. I don't let emails go unanswered. And as I said, a couple of the questions I went over were emailed to me from citizens, and I included them in the information. If there are no questions, have a good night. I sincerely thank you for coming.